Oh, you know what? I just realized something. I gotta stop share for a second. I've got the old logo here. You're not BCIT. I should have that should be Yorkville. 1 second here. Oh my goodness. Can't believe I missed that. I just did a presentation for BCIT.
Okay. So just hold on a second, everybody. Okay, just while Lori fixes one thing on her PowerPoint, and then we will get started.
Here we go. It's there. Good thing I caught that. That would have been very awkward. All right. I'll just update that final bit. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for your patience. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again.
Lovely.
There we go. Yay.
Lovely. Look at us there. All right. And we've got 30 odd participants here in our Zoom room, and I think more coming. That number keeps changing for me. And obviously we are live streaming on YouTube. Keep in mind, those of you that are joining us from YouTube, that you will not be able to participate in any of the Q&A or log into the chat because you're not here in Zoom with us. But if you want to pop over to our Zoom link and actually join us on Zoom, we would love that. But in the meantime, we are going to jump right into our session this morning, which is a special 1 hour Ask an Expert. So welcome, everybody. I am Dr. Deirdre Pickerel. I am the Dean of Student Success at Yorkville University and the Toronto Film School. And on behalf of the Student Success team, I am really pleased to welcome you to today's Ask an Expert session. As we begin, we acknowledge that the land Yorkville University operates on in British Columbia, where I personally am located, and actually Lori as well, but we're just in different regions of the Vancouver area. We are in the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples of the Kakite and the Coquitlam First Nations. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. So April is Stress Awareness Month. And as the month slowly comes to an end, we're sitting here on the 23rd, but stress and anxiety remain so prevalent, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic. I am actually absolutely thrilled to welcome Lori Quaquera. No, I didn't say that right. Did I, Lori? Did I get it?
Oh, that was perfect. That was great. Thank
Yay! And Lori's talking to us about resilience and love. Lori is the head of HR, Vancouver and Los Angeles for DNIG, one of the world's leading visual effects, animation, and stereo conversion companies for feature film and television. That sounds like a really exciting role. Lori is a strategic business partner and culture leader with over 20 years experience in culture and belonging strategy and implementation and elevating workplace experiences that inspire purpose, connection, and impact. Leading and loving by example is her mantra. Lori is passionate about elevating the life experience at work and cultivating a community that is igniting and enriching our spirit. And I can tell you, this is a lady to watch. We've had some fantastic conversations as we've gotten ready for our Ask an Expert this morning. So Lori, with no further ado, I am going to turn it over to you. I will monitor the chat, and obviously we will have time for questions at the end. But now the floor is yours.
Yay, thank you so much, Deirdre. Did I say that right? Yes, perfect. Well, welcome everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, because I know some of us might be in Toronto or East Coast, because I've invited a few of our team members from DNEG there as well, and saying hi to my team members who are joining as well. And welcome. Usually I start at 9 o'clock and do a meditation with our team every day, Monday to Friday. And we do this Calm app for 5 minutes, and then we share our gratitudes and intentions. And I thought, maybe for us, because we're all talking about building resilience with love, that we would just start off with a quick check-in with ourselves. And so if we can just collectively take a deep breath in and out and just check in. How are you feeling in this moment? How are you feeling in this moment? Maybe there's a couple of words that might describe that feeling. Maybe it's on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 feeling great. I'm feeling really excited and also a little bit nervous. I get nervous when I'm talking about love because love is one of those things that you don't hear often in the workplace, or like unless it's at home you do, but like in some kind of other environment. So I'm excited that Deidre was so open to having me share about resilience with love. So anyhow, I just wanted us to just honor where we're at and really check in. And because there's so many different personal strategies that I want to share, but I can't incorporate all of them, I'm just going to do it like here as I'm facilitating throughout the session. So just listen and kind of embody as well. So I always like to start my sessions with an intention, and I will invite you as well to set an intention for yourself. I'll start with setting an intention to live my purpose, which is to live well and love completely. So what that means is I'm going to do my part to create a wow experience with you. And as I say create with you is because whatever you put in is what you're going to get out. But I'm also going to, the love completely is a reminder to have self-compassion for myself. I might, fumble on a couple of things because again, I'm a little bit nervous here, but also to love by example, that it's okay. It's okay. It's not about being perfect, and also to create a space for all of you to show up, to be seen, heard, and cared for. And so what I invite you now to as well is to set that intention. How do you want to be for this session? What kind of experience do you want to create for yourself? I might be facilitating, but this is your time as well. And I'd love for you to bring your curiosity, your empathy, your compassion. If you hear someone share something on chat, share appreciation and recognition. Let's support each other. Let's co-create a meaningful human connection today. All right. So I thought, why are we actually talking about resilience with love? So it's not that it's the first time I've talked about resilience. If you can imagine, when the pandemic first arrived, I got a lot of calls about resilience. Can you do a workshop on resilience, building team resilience, personal resilience, creating a culture of belonging, or remote leadership? These were very popular topics because everyone was feeling, disconnected, disengaged, and really wanting to ensure people felt like they were cared for. And so this talk is actually a little bit different because now I'm talking about resilience and how love actually supported me this past year. So let me share you a quick story of how I got here and why this is really meaningful. If you follow me on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, you'll know that love is one of my core values, or love first specifically. And I speak about it because I feel that this is a very powerful way to live our life. There's only love and fear, and we get to choose every day how we want to lead and live our lives. And so last November 2019, I often do every year a self-reflection. And at the end of that year, I didn't know the pandemic was going to come. Like no one, I think we started hearing rumblings about it in December. So in November, I was just doing it because it was the end of a decade, it was the end of a year. And I would ask myself questions when I'm self-reflecting is like, what did you learn? What were you most proud of? What do you love most about yourself? Like just really checking in. And what I ended up doing was looking at my whole life and my whole career. And I realized that, oh my gosh, the next bit of my career is now the end of my career. So how do I want to end my career? How do I envision, and what kind of story or impact do I want to create? And it was at that moment that I decided I was going to end my business, which I've had for 10 years, Spark Creations, where we were really supporting leaders and teams and organizations to create meaningful cultures and workplaces. And it was just time for me to take everything that I've learned and bring it inside. And then the pandemic arrived. And if you know me as well, I have lots of various personal strategies and tools. Like I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, I work out at 6, I drink water. Like I have a routine on purpose to keep me, showing up every day. But as soon as the pandemic arrived, like most of us, everything just fell apart. Like all of those strategies, I just threw them out the window. I stayed in bed. I got lost. I tried to stay connected. Like even just talking about it right now, I'm starting to relive that experience of that pandemic. And I'm still living it. Every day is a new day for me. Some days I'm like, yes, I feel really great. And some days are not. And that's what resilience is about, is like, how do you respond to everything that's going on? It's not the first time I've experienced a crisis, right? But it's, it's one of those ones that I haven't, experienced with our friends and globally. So after I kind of went through that experience, I found my way back home, and I'm going to share with you today what that was about. So yes, it is about love, but there's something specific about love, whether you use love or empathy, compassion, or just being human. And that's what we're going to really focus on today. So I forgot to click, but this is a picture of me when I was really stuck in my bed. And this is really new for me because I have not really experienced any, day-to-day kind of anxiety because of my daily routines of meditation and really taking care of myself. So when this happened, I was really lost, and I felt like that dog, kind of snuggled under my covers. The other thing that happened as I was going through my journey and really coming back home to myself, I paused on looking for a role because everyone else was pausing. No one was recruiting at the time. And then eventually, come August, I got a call that there was this company that was looking for a head of HR. And you know what? I was super nervous because I was like, am I ready? Am I going to do this? Am I going to go back? And how do I want to show up? Are they going to be okay with me talking about love? Like I say love all the time, right? You can probably count how many times. And this is what's wonderful about this company, DNEG, is that they wanted me to be more loving. They wanted me to have more empathy and human connection, because at that time they had gone through so much within the organization that they needed someone in this leadership role to lead by example. And so our theme actually for 2021 is resilience, and it's also my personal theme. So here's what we're going to cover for today, and feel free to add any other thoughts or questions that you might have in the chat. But what I'm hoping that we're going to co-create by the end of this session is that we're going to understand what actually is resilience. Because there's three key elements to resilience. I also want to introduce this concept of love and compassion, because there actually is neuroscience for us to actually choose love versus fear. And we'll talk a little bit about the difference between those two. And then I'm hoping that through the session, whether it's the check-in, whether it's we took a deep breath, whether you shared a resilient story, these are all tips on how we can start building our resilience with love and make it a daily practice. Okay, so I want to start off with context, just so that we're all here on the same playing field. First of all, we are all human. We are all human. We're all leaders. And when I say we're all leaders, it's not about title or rank. It's about all of us having the power to choose how we lead ourselves through our life. When we take care of ourselves, then we're able to make decisions that are aligned with us, and then we can also choose the energy that we want to share, because again, we're all interconnected with each other. So I just want to set that stage that wherever you are, we're all connected, and wherever you are, that's exactly where it needs to be. So just want to set that intention as we continue to build our resilience together. So I'm going to share with you this graph that I shared in the early March of 2020, when I started sharing resilience courses. I wanted to come up with something that would be easy for people to acknowledge and name where they were at. Because when we were going through this, I don't know about you, but for me, I couldn't name what I was feeling. I was feeling so many different feelings. Was I, stressed out? Was I shocked? Was I in grief? And so, when you do a lot of emotional intelligence and agility, you start to learn that there's so many different emotions. And when you really take the time to understand who you are, there you will also discover there's so many variations or dimensions to your emotions. So take a moment to look at this and see, where do you feel you might be? Because we are going through our third wave of this pandemic. And for some of us, in Ontario, our friends there are going through a lockdown. Hopefully that doesn't happen to Vancouver, but we do have some restrictions. And so when those things come up and we hear Dr. Bonnie Henry talk about those things, we start to have an emotional reaction. I know I do. So take a moment. And if you're open to sharing where you're at, feel free to share that in the chat. And Deirdre, let me know if there's anyone that is courageous enough to share where they're at. because this again could be any time, right? This is actually a graph of people who have gone through earthquakes or any kind of crisis in other countries. Again, this is not the first time we've even had a pandemic, right? So they've done studies to see what are some of the emotions or ways that people go through this. Do we have anyone sharing?
Absolutely. We've got a couple people that have said acceptance, languishing. I'm seeing that word a lot, Lori, in the news and, you know, kind of in my circles, that we feel like we're languishing. Somebody's feeling quite trapped and out of control because of the lockdown in Toronto. Moving from disillusion to acceptance, but feeling like I'm falling backwards. Fatigue. Yeah, so that, oh, it's amazing. You've even got a slide for languishing. Boy, that was,
I do.
couldn't have planned that better.
No, we couldn't have planned that better. I was like, okay, Deidre, you're like saying it, so I'm going to click it. Here we go. Yeah, it leads perfectly. So Adam Grant actually came up, posted, I think it was a couple of days ago. I feel like again, I lost track of time. Like every day seems the same. And so the article was for the New York Times, and it's called, "There's a Name for the Blah You're Feeling. It's called Languishing." And so I shared this on Instagram, and so many people were like, yes, this is how I feel. Because here, this is another tool that you could share with your team and your families if you kind of just want to, you know, find a way to acknowledge where they're at. But then languishing, for some reason, really connected with a lot of us. It's not that we're feeling burnt out, but it's not like we're feeling we have all this energy, right? It's just that kind of in that middle, and it's hard to even describe. And so since Adam had named this languishing, everyone's using it now, which is great. So yeah, languages is that kind of feeling. So wherever you're at, honor where that is. You know, it's okay to be wherever you are. And again, it's more about checking in with ourselves daily. If you are feeling languishing, how do you want to be? Which is why we set that intention in the beginning. So why does this all matter? I always like to share some data points on this because, you know, we have some analytical mindsets. We also maybe want to, is this real? Like, is anyone else going through this? Is this really important for me to consider? And yes, it is, because according to Healthline, adults throughout the nation are reporting their highest stress levels since the start of the health crisis early last year. So we are actually even more stressed now than when it first started in March. And it could be, I don't know if you've heard of that concept, Deidre, about the 6-month wall, but obviously we've passed that 6-month wall. I think that article came out in September, but it's real that after six, you know, when we hit the 6-month mark, we're like, oh my gosh, when is this going to end? And now we've gone over a year. And then again, because of the third wave, we're thinking, is this going to ever end? And the reality is, it's probably going to be a different version of what normal is. There's not even going to be a normal. This is going to be a way of our life. And because of that, this is why resilience is so important, because we need to start accepting our reality. So also, Statistics Canada says that 1 in 5 Canadians experience some level of loneliness. I actually shared this data point like at least a year or 2 years before the pandemic arrived, because we've been hearing stories or experience of people feeling disconnected before we had to do a lockdown, before we had to do social distancing. It was because we were all online, and it just kind of, even though we're connected, we're not. It just felt like it wasn't as human. And so there was that feeling of loneliness and isolation. And can you imagine now, with people who are actually living alone, don't have the family or support system, what's that like? And loneliness is actually equivalent to 15 cigarettes a day. Like, it has a huge impact on our health. So again, another reason why we need to build our resilience and support each other. And then lastly, belonging. I talk a lot about belonging because for me, belonging is a human need. It's what brings us belonging, starting with ourselves, and then is part of creating with others. So belonging is a primal and fundamental to our sense of happiness. And so I always will incorporate. So when we talk about resilience and love, I will share not only the strategy for ourselves, because we need to love ourselves first in order to love others, but also what can we do for others? Again, that's what belonging is about. So I'm going to take a moment here and pause and have you reflect on this question. What does resilience mean to you? What does resilience mean to you? And maybe you've got a resilience story that you can call upon, maybe a challenging moment that you were able to overcome and get through. or yeah, the characteristics of people that you see who are resilient. What does resilience look and feel like? If you can share that in the chat, that would be great. And then Deidre can actually share some of those comments. Would love to see how we all define resilience together before I share a definition.
So I loved the first one, grit.
Grit, yes.
Grit, I loved that. That's a great word. So somebody else is sharing, I've been trying to get positive energy from all the things around me, and I've learned to accept myself as is. The ability to bounce back. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger and better. Again, ability to bounce back, continuing in the spite of adversity, whatever that adversity looks like. Right, we'll all experience things differently, so that I think that's pretty powerful. Yeah, lots. I love the engagement in the chat. Learning self-care and grounding, how to be grounded. Acceptance of hard times and pushing through even when it doesn't feel good. Brilliant.
It's great.
Yeah, brilliant stuff.
So take a moment when you're looking at that chat to see the common words, right? Adaptability, you know, getting through adversity, bouncing back, getting grounded, you know, all those words. It's really about how we take those moments in our lives and then we get up, but it's the growth that happens from getting up. Okay. So it's not just going up and down, but it's actually every time you get up, you're a new person. You've learned from that experience. You're taking it in and you're applying it to the next one, right? So we've all had some type of adversity, you know, in our lives, you know, big or small. There's no right or wrong. It's just whatever experience you've had that was challenging. And then when you think about what happened for you to get through that, those moments is what's going to make you stronger for the next time and the next time again, because you know what, we're going to probably have this pandemic go on for a little bit longer. So what are we going to learn from the first time that we had the wave, and how are we going to build upon that? So I want to highlight here that resilience is the capacity to recover from difficult life events and to grow from that experience. And that's why I want to highlight, we recover, but we actually grow from that experience. So that's really the very specific. Resilience is really something that we can learn. Okay, so there are 3 elements of resilience that I've done some research on. I've also included an HBR article. So what I'm going to do as well, I don't know, Deidre, if we actually share these slides, but I'm happy to share the slides and any tools that you want from here. I just open like an open book and open sharing. So let me know. Otherwise, I just want to go through the 3 elements. So there's 3: reality acceptance, search for meaning, and sense of belonging. What does this mean? I'm going to share some statements, and I want you to think about which of these statements actually feel strong for you right now, either that you have it in your life or that you want more of it in your life. I understand and accept my reality. I understand and accept my reality. Search for meaning is I know what matters most in my life. I know what matters most in my life. And sense of belong is I feel trusted and cared for. I feel trusted and cared for. So take a moment right now, review these elements. Which do you connect with the most? And if you could share that in the chat, that would be great. Another way to look at it is which one do you want more of in your life that you want to strengthen? Do you want to have that grounded feeling that, yes, I know this is what's happening and I'm okay because I've got a great life. I'm focusing on what's good. Do you know what matters in your life so that you can make decisions and you don't need to focus on that big pandemic, but you're focusing on what matters, your family, the times that you're spending with them that you never thought you could this past year? Or do you have this sense of belonging that you are surrounding yourself with people that love you, that lift you up, you feel trusted and cared for? So Deirdre, do we have any comments in there of people sharing which ones they are connecting?
Yeah, just one. Oh, here they come. Here they come.
they had to take a moment to reflect.
They're slow, but then they get on a roll. Okay, so I know what matters most in my life. More of all 3 would be good is one comment. Somebody has said sense of belonging. Another one, I think reality acceptance, even though it's the first step, it's the hardest one. It's so easy to push feelings down and try to distract oneself instead.
Yep.
I feel greatly connected to search for meaning and reality acceptance. Yeah, so you're really making people think this morning, Lori. I knew you would. I knew you would.
Well, this is the wow part. And also the invitation to engage, because this is going to be more meaningful for all of us if you're really interacting and engaging with Deidre and ourselves. So I love how someone shared that it's so hard to really understand and accept my reality. That is definitely, that's probably the hardest one. Actually, they're all hard, but that one I think is the one that's kind of the block before you even start to look inside and ask those questions about what matters, and then look to see, for asking for support and receiving that support. But accepting that reality, it's so easy to avoid. Like, there's no pandemic. I'm just going to go out there. But the reality it is here. And so we need to do our part to take care of ourselves as well as our community and our family. And so that honor yourself. It takes a little bit longer, but know that with these tools that I'm going to share with you, it's going to help you open up and start your process of resilience. All right. So how might we build resilience with love? I know she keeps talking about love. What does love have to do with it, right? Tina Turner. Science, I'm going to share the science of love. Like, there is a science behind love. And I love that there is, because every time I talk about love, it just seems like this big word, and we know about it because of our mom, our parents, and, family love and friendship love. But to take it bigger to the love of agape, which is to love in action, I want to invite you to kind of learn how humans actually create love. And we actually do. This is something that I'm so excited to share with you, that you probably have heard it, especially the moms in the room who naturally release this when they're having babies, because then we fall in love. That's why we fall in love with our babies, is because this hormone is released. But really, oxytocin is something that any of us can release. We can create this in any moment. We don't have to pay for our spa or massages or anything, like meditation retreats. This is something that if you take the time, you can harness it and create it for yourself. And it's so powerful because all of us humans have this ability. What is oxytocin? It's actually a love hormone associated with empathy, trust, connection, and relationship building. When you feel oxytocin and you're releasing it, especially right now, I'm hoping you can feel it when we're talking to each other, when you see Deirdre and us connecting and we're engaging with you. These are moments where we're actually creating some oxytocin. We're connecting with each other. We're bonding with each other. This is an opportunity for us to, when we choose love in our everyday, to create more of this. However, it's really hard to do because of this cortisol. Okay, so the opposite of love is fear. And fear, when we look at the scientific background, like what happens when we are in fear, we release this thing called cortisol. And it's also a different kind of a hormone. It's more of a stress hormone. So every time we're high levels of stress, we're fearful, our amygdala is firing, we have the fight, flight, or freeze. And that's our response, because it's just this emotional response to like, no, I can't see my family. I want to go camping this weekend. I want to go to Victoria, whatever. That's the fear, the uncertainty that causes cortisol. And if you can imagine, there's so much of it going on. It's not just in the workplace, it's our everyday. So that's why it's so important for us to be mindful of how we show up, but also to take care of others. And then if someone's saying, you know what, I need some time, that we are honoring them where they're at, because we're all experiencing cortisol. And why is this happening? Is because our brain, our human species, has been around for over 200 years, which means our brain has been around for that long. And the part of our brain that's the oldest, the reptilian part of our brain, that's where all of our fears and our biases or any kind of learned behaviors are all stored in. And when we don't have the tools to manage ourselves, it goes straight to our limbic part of our brain, our emotional part of our brain, because it's there to protect us from the saber-toothed tiger from back in the day. But that saber-toothed tiger is the pandemic. It's COVID. It's, telling us that we can't go out, or it's the boss that's not recognizing or seeing you, or it's your team member that's not communicating. Like, in whatever way that fear shows up today, that's the reason why we're responding that way. So then we have high levels of cortisol to release and to support us. And so here's the tricky part: knowing that there's love and there's fear, there's oxytocin and there's cortisol, both hormones that we actually produce. Again, stress hormone interferes with our learning and memory. It affects our immune system. It creates heart disease. It actually accelerates any type of disease that we currently have. So risk for depression and mental illness and life expectancy, and it decreases our resilience. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is this. I talked to a few doctors because this is the love and fear and the science of it. I wanted to make sure, like, how is this possible? We do create this and release this as humans, but what's happening in our day-to-day? What they said is that you cannot release oxytocin and cortisol at the same time. You cannot release oxytocin and cortisol at the same time. So what that means is that if you want to sit there and have this meaningful conversation with your team member or your coworker or your friend, and they're trying to be there for each other, it can't be to where you want it to be if you are both in stress mode and releasing cortisol. The only way that it can work is that we do things that will lower our cortisol, which is to meditate, to drink water, to take care of ourselves, to exercise, to go for that nature walk. And only when our stress levels are down can we then start to produce more oxytocin. So think about the workplace today, right? If we're all super stressed out and everything is already online, we're all virtual, we don't see each other, like we don't, there's not that connection, that natural conversations that happen in the lunchroom, and we're stressed out. And then we have our family and the homeschooling, like everything. If everyone's at that level, what can we do to support each other to release that, to lower that, so that we can then have more empathy and compassion for each other and more love? So really, this was eye-opening for me when I discovered this, because I would have managers come to me in my role and they're like, I talk to my team member every day and I check in, but I don't see the engagement. I still feel disconnected. Well, if it's super stress for them and their workload is this, or you're not giving enough feedback, or you're not connecting all the time, especially remotely, it's going to be hard for them to even hear that you care and feel it. So that's something to really consider. So again, we've got a choice as humans and leaders and parents and people in general to either choose to lead with love or choose to lead with fear. The thing is, there's always going to be fear. Fear and love is always going to be within us and within the environments that we're a part of. And then we get to choose in ourselves, which one do we want to go? If you want to feel the fear for a little bit, yes, I'm feeling uncertain and I'm lost, feel it, acknowledge it, and then let it go and choose to do love or to be love. So here's what I'm going to talk about now is how can we choose love over fear more often and not stay in the fear as long as we need to. It really starts with loving ourselves. I have to repeat that, loving ourselves. What does that mean to love ourselves? It means I say no when I mean to say no. I set boundaries. I don't say yes to everything and then feel resentment because I can't take it on, but I didn't want to hurt that person or look like I didn't know anything. It's not feeling safe to say I don't know. There's so many different ways to love ourselves, which is really just honoring who we are. And imagine if we were able to, there's no fear, right? The fear is like holding back and not asking questions. And I know that's not just you, it could be the environment, which is why we need to also create the environment. Well, let's just say there was more of that. The opposite of that is that we feel safe, we feel seen, we feel inspired, we feel engaged. We want to create, we want to ask questions, we want to engage, right? So this is right. Part of even when I set the intention is and then invited you, that's part of creating psychological safety. It's saying, hey, I'm going to be facilitating, but I want you to be part of this experience too. So here's the strategy that really supported me to get through this past year and every day. One is define your core values. And I know for people who've seen me before, I talk about core values a lot. If you go on my LinkedIn, I created 365 days values living as part of my vision for 2021. And I tell you, because I did that and I posted it and shared it aloud, whether anyone read it or not, it was really for me. It actually made me think about my values every day. What am I going to do every day to live my values? So what does it actually mean to define your core values? Core values are a way to describe or articulate what matters most in your life. It helps you to make decisions to align with you. so that if someone says, Lori, can you do this? I have to check in. How does that feel? Is that a yes? Is that a no? Or maybe it's not right now. My values will help me decide. If I didn't know my values, I'd be like, okay, sure. And I'll say yes, 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 yes to everything. And then I'll be like totally tired and depleted, and then feel resentful that I didn't take care of myself. So values really honor you. It really helps you to make decisions that are aligned. And when you do that, you feel fulfilled. So, Deirdre, are you ready for our live demo? I just put this on her literally a few minutes ago, and she's open to trying this. The reason I want to show a live demo is because you could do this on your own and you can self-reflect, but it's so much more fun. And I'm going to share with you why. And I don't know if Deirdre feels like it's going to be fun, but she doesn't even know the question I'm going to ask her. So what I'm going to
she 5 minutes before she said, "Hey, will you do this demo with me?" And I thought, "Oh, no pressure. I'm in the hot seat now." But we've got safe space here with our colleagues and our students, and it's all good.
We do. And thank you again, Deirdre, for just being open to trying this out, because it gives people a chance to see what it's like. So so the way it would work is that you would do it in partners, or you can do it as a group. Like this is a great family kind of activity as well, or for your team, and you can go one by one, and each of the other partners or other participants can share. So I'm going to invite all of you to actively listen as Deirdre answers this question. And she doesn't know what question it is, and it's on purpose because we want her to just answer it from her heart, not from her mind. Because when we tell you the question in advance, guess what happens? You start overthinking. Oh, what is that? Like, what's the perfect answer to say? So this is whatever comes out. It's your true, authentic response and story, Deirdre. And then everyone else just actively listen. And then we're going to invite you to share with us, what did you hear from her story? And that's how, and those words, Deirdre, if you want to take notes, those words will be the start of you defining your core values, because we always speak from our values whenever we share and connect with others. So here's the question, Deirdre.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. What makes you smile?
Oh, what makes me smile? Life makes me smile. Life makes me smile. Yeah, I like, I think that to me, when you wake up every day, you have a choice. You can be happy or you cannot be. And obviously that's not easy, right? Like sometimes life is hard. And, I recognize that I very much sit in a position of privilege and I'm blessed. But still, there's that old saying, money can't buy you happiness. And lots of people that have what seem like the perfect lives and they're woefully unhappy. And so to me, there's choice in there. I can choose how I react to situations. I can choose to have anger and respond in anger, or I can choose to look for the bright spot. So you could ask my team, Lori. I'm always smiling. I'm always smiling. I'm always trying to be happy. And sometimes that's the graceful swan. Can I use that instead of a duck? A graceful swan and paddling like hell underneath the water that nobody can see. And, sometimes it's holding in my own stuff because I want to be there for others. But in general, I think, that I'm blessed to be living this life, and I'm not going to waste a moment of it. I don't know. That just seems,
yeah, it's beautiful. It's so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your heart. So I invite our participants, what did you hear from Deirdre's story? And you can use some of the words that she shared, or maybe there are other words that you felt, energy words, values. What is really most important to her from that one question? So we'll just wait. And I don't know if you want to write this down. There's probably going to be a lot of words for you, Deirdre, but you can kind of see how this works by them sharing what they heard from you. Have they started sharing some words?
Yeah, somebody loves the graceful swan, right? I don't want to be the clunky. I don't want to be the clunky duck. I want to be the graceful swan. So somebody says I'm positive and caring, and I do try to do that. I do try to be. Mindset when you wake up is important. Being more grateful is something that this person's working on. It's not, it's not easy. It's not easy some days. So Karen says, I'm choosing to smile and find something to apply it to. Facing challenges with a smile. Yeah, like that's very meaningful.
Great.
It's very purposeful. So I hope we can, it would be nice if we could try to do this with groups, right? With peer,
Yes.
we could do support groups about building resilience and love, and really create triads and groups of students to come together and try to have these experiences. But of course, you could also do it with your family and your friends and your student colleagues, right? And then really think about like for me, somebody's commented about, you know, gratitude for having privilege, and I do have gratitude for having privilege, but I think it's recognizing. And then so also, what do you do to give back? Like, can you try to make somebody else's day a little bit better, right? Or their lives a little bit better. We're all here. Ultimately, I think what this pandemic has shown us is that we are all what an incredible and weird shared experience. Like globally, we are
Yeah.
having a shared experience.
Mhm.
But there was a quote that came out early in the pandemic, and I've shared this in a lot of work that I've done this year. And it's Bikram. I can't cite it correctly because I know the first name and I can't remember the last name. But it's basically, we are all having this shared experience. We are all experience the exact same storm, but we are in vastly different boats.
Yes, I love
And
that.
that really kind of meant like, wow, some of us are in luxury ocean liners and some of us are probably not in boats. We are clinging to the side of the rope trailing behind the boat. And so what you know, I think that just changes your perspective around how people are feeling in this day. And yet within that, even the people that are, you know, like drowning off the side, you know, some of them still smile and they still give of themselves rather than taking. And what a way to live a life. You know, I figure I'm here once. I'm here once. I can choose to enjoy the ride, or I can choose to be really bitter about it. So yeah.
I love that. And so some other words that I would share just from you, what you just shared right now, is that, you know, in addition to grace and gratitude, something that comes up for me that you value is connection, inspiration, uh, empathy and compassion, empowerment. So these are the words when you're listening to Deirdre explain, you know, answering questions or explaining a little bit more about who she is and what's important to her. Then you can relay back those words to her. And those words, Deirdre, would be the start of you defining your values. You would then take those words, theme it in some groups. And I always say 3 words, 3 values are actually good and easy to remember, but you can go up to 5 maximum. If you have like 10, it's hard to remember all those words. Then you can start
For
creating,
sure.
yeah, and then you can start creating value statements to it, right? And so, you know, one of my core values is love first. And for me, that's really about loving by example, taking that step forward, even if love isn't as something that we hear every day. And I want to stop saying that because I feel this year, ever since the pandemic, people want more love. So it's like, yes, that's awesome. So that's just a little demo of how you can facilitate it. And like what Deidre said, it's a great team building exercise that you can do with your students or with your colleagues. It's also a great diversity and inclusion and belonging exercise. And I
Mm-hmm.
tell you why, is because imagine everyone is sharing what matters most to them after they answer those questions and now they're sharing their values. You're really allowing them to show who they are and what's important to them. And that is fascinating because everyone's different and unique and you get to see what really lights them up. So here's a form that you can use. Again, I can share this with you whenever, you know, if you have anyone wants to do it, you can either print this form. It's usually back to back. There's those questions. You can do it on your own, but if you actually do it in partners, it's amazing. I'm even including how you would do it to lead this because it's really easy. So here's the instructions if you were to actually lead it within your organizations or within your groups. It's a great way to get to know each other as well, right? Great dating tool too. So the next one, after you define your core values, another strategy is to create a trust agreement. And for my team members who are on the line, they know that this is really, really important to me, whether I've done it with them individually or when I've done it as a group. And anytime before we even start any type of relationship, I always start with a trust agreement. And a trust agreement is a way for us to get to know each other, know what our values and what's important to us, and what kind of partnership do we want to create. But what I'd like for us to do is not just create a trust agreement with others. It's creating a trust agreement with ourselves. Because trust with ourselves is so key, but we seldom think about it. We seldom think about loving ourselves and taking care of ourselves. It always kind of feels like, uh-oh, am I focusing on me too much? Is it selfish? But it's not. If you can figure out or really get grounded on what trust means to you, for you, and you start doing things and creating things that are more honoring yourself, then the trust that you have with others is going to be stronger. It's going to be less ego and less worrying and less comparing. It's going to be just really wholesome. So here are some questions that you can reflect on when you're thinking about creating a trust agreement for yourself. What does trust mean to me? What does it mean to trust myself? What will having full trust in myself give me? And what can I create for myself and others when I trust myself completely? Again, another way to overcome that fear and to choose love. And here's an example of my trust agreement. And you notice here, I actually created this at the beginning of this year. I've done it before, but I thought I'd create a new one. And I love this line that I put in here. It's okay not to be okay. That's that self-compassion piece. And then every time I'm feeling lost or feel like I feel pressured to be a certain way, I look at my trust agreement. I'm like, yes, I'm okay. So this is, what matters to you? What kind of trust do you want to create for yourself? It doesn't have to be this long list. It could be one thing, however you want it, but you can start the journey of creating that trust agreement. And then create that trust agreement with others. So this is something, as I mentioned, I shared with my team. And these are the lists of questions that I asked. And we didn't have time to go through it every hour, but every time we met, I'm like, okay, let's add another question. How will I contribute to building trust? And the two of us both answer these questions because it's just as important for them to hear what trust means to me as it is with them. And then I'm hoping that they do this with other people. So you can do this even with your life partners at home. The third strategy is ask and give support. So when I first started my journey on personal development, the biggest life lesson I learned was that asking for support gives you strength. But that's not what I was taught growing up. I was taught to be strong and independent. You can figure it out on your own, Lori. You don't ask for help. You just, don't be a bother. Don't add more to other people's plates and all of that. And that's totally something I'd had to reprogram in my brain. Again, it was stuck in my reptilian part of my brain. It was a bias or a learned behavior. But when you understand the power of asking for support, it will change your life. Because here's the thing. You give the gift of giving to someone else. If you ask someone for help, everyone will be like, yes, I want to help you. And then they will release oxytocin and even dopamine because they are actually feeling good to help someone. That's why it feels good to help people. It's because we are designed as human beings to do that. And then there's this chemical that's released, oxytocin and dopamine. And you're like, yes, I want to just keep helping. And how can you help? There's different ways. There's volunteering, there's mentoring, there's joining a group and surrounding yourself and really building upon each other. And so when I asked for support, I also gave support. The first thing I did is when I put out a post on LinkedIn and I said, I'm willing to do 5 different workshops for donations. And then those donations would support groups that need it, like Black Lives Matter or Dress for Success, whichever, or even a charity of their choice. And had 5 companies respond quickly to that. But every time I actually shared, it felt so good for me. It took my mind off the pandemic, to tell you the truth, because I was just there to give for others. And that's the thing, when you start learning about yourself and defining your purpose, which we talked about, search for meaning, then that rebuilds your resilience because it's less about what's going on. You're like, I'm focusing on you right now, my mentee, and really spending time with you. So asking and giving support. So these are just 3 things that I thought out of like so many things that I do where that builds resilience, but there's so much more. And if you have any other ideas, feel free to share in the chat because I know we are all having our own ways to get through this. Other things that I would highlight as well as a next level. So if you define your values and you've created that trust agreement with yourself and others, and you're asking and giving support, you're going out there and really connecting with people, the next level is make it a daily practice. Create a daily ritual to start your day, something that will, for me, I wake up in the morning and I meditate and I work out and I do my gratitudes. And if I miss a day, I can feel it. I don't feel it in the moment when I'm doing. I'm like, oh my gosh, here I am with my Calm app again. But you know what? You just have to keep moving along. Also, write your life vision. That was part of what I shared in my LinkedIn, my hashtag 365 days values living. That was part of my vision for 2021. And so far, it's April 23rd. I'm feeling great. I still have moments where I have my low moments. I have my fear moments, but I'm able to move through that with love. And then surround yourself with people who will lift you up. And that's really key because, again, that allows your loved ones or the people that you trust to support you. You can ask for support. We're getting to the end now, Deirdre. I'm just going to add a couple of resources now for everyone. Tons of books. If you ever came over, which I know we can't right now, but one day I'm going to show a picture of my bookshelf. There's tons of books that you can read to help us get through. And if you've got some books that you want to share, feel free to do so in the chat. Or even send it to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to learn more. Couple of other articles. Again, I love Harvard Business Review. I love this Think article about leading with love. And there's actually a video recording of me doing this values exercise, in addition to you watching this recording, which is why aligning personal and organizational values matter. And so these are all different articles that really support in building resilience with love. And so last but not least, I always want to leave some inspired action. So what's your big takeaway from today? Because if we're going to make this session not only meaningful from all of the interactions, but to actually do something with it, it's really inspiring you to take action. So what's that one thing? Will you create a self-trust agreement? Will you start asking yourself those questions and maybe do that team activity for the values? Whatever it might be, what's that one thing that you can commit? And if you can share in the chat, you might inspire someone else on creating more action as well. And I'll leave you with this quote: do not judge me by my successes, judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again. Nelson Mandela, who is the person who inspired me to create more resilience. And that's it. So I'm going to pause here, Deirdre, to see if anyone has any questions.
Wow, the chat's going crazy.
Oh no!
That's good. No, it's all good. It's all good. And so because we're monitoring the chat, you've also got the Q&A panel at the bottom of the screen. We've got a few minutes left. If anybody has any questions for Lori, any additional comments that I can share. There's a couple of us that have decided that you give the gift of giving to others when you ask for help was so profound, Lori, like just so profound that it gives me tingles, right? It gives me a little tingle. What came up for me the most, Lori, even when you and I were first talking about this session is, and what I think you've represented beautifully is that we don't talk about love enough, like especially love in the workplace. Like we somehow, I don't know if society has conditioned us to think love is only something that you have, with your partner, with your family, but there's so many dimensions to it that why can't we talk about love and compassion and hope and kindness in the context of our workplaces? Can you imagine how much better it would be going to work every day if we had a culture of kindness and concern and caring in our workplaces? Like, whoa, that would be pretty phenomenal, wouldn't it?
Well, I can share a really quick story. Again, I'm so fortunate that DNAG was open to me just being me. I think that when you're getting a new job or transitioning, and I think a lot of us even starting our career, we think we're supposed to be a certain way for people to see us, to accept us. But I'm now like 47. I'm like, okay, I know who I am, again, from my values, from this whole journey and building my resilience over time, that I'm just really grounded in who I was. And so I said, you know what, I'm just going to be me and let go of that imposter syndrome, which I can still have at this age. And it was amazing because one of the things that happened is that we had a meeting, and my boss actually he's a guy, not that guys can't use the word love, but I was just like, I don't think he uses love all the time. And he says, we've got to love our people more. I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's happening. Like it's contagious. Like people are actually now feeling it. And it was just so beautiful for me. And I know that if I just keep choosing love, people are going to feel it in whatever way they can. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. My doctoral work in my career before Yorkville, and in lots of cases, what I bring to the Yorkville community now, it really is around, we use the word engagement, right? I've co-authored a career engagement model. I'm writing a book at the moment with my co-author, and that's all about coming to work and feeling like you can bring your unique self and you're happy and you're engaged and there's a sense of belonging. But interestingly, Lori, you've used the kind of the real power words. Like we've used the word engagement. Like what the hell does that mean? But like really, we're talking about the same thing, but you're using these words that I think have this emotional, visceral reaction for people. And in some cases, they have to wrap their head around, why are we talking about these words in the context of work? But we spend so much time at work with our colleagues and doing this work. Don't we all have a right to come to work and be present and feel kind spaces and feel love, right? Like it's just what a powerful, we're getting lots of, this was a powerful session. It was really, really powerful.
Comments and everything. That's great. Yes.
Yeah. So somebody is, your words are reinforcing my decision to go back to school to Yorkville, even though I'm a bit terrified. Love will overcome my fear. Lifelong learning fits with my values.
Thank you, Karen. That's amazing.
Absolutely perfect.
One person is inspired by this conversation to choose love. Yes, Deirdre, we did it.
Yeah, no, I think you've inspired a lot of people today. We got a Lori, you rock. Yeah, she does, doesn't she? I knew she'd be fantastic.
That's my fellow.
This has been an amazing session.
Thank you.
This has been an amazing session.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So everybody, we really so even if love is an uncomfortable word for people, I think being mindful and creating space in our thoughts might achieve similar results. Absolutely, right? Like we can maybe not say it, but think it. Right, if we're not feeling quite
that's the thing. And so if you notice, I actually put in compassion. Some people use compassion. Like I do workshops where if the word love still feels a little bit tricky for people, I'm okay to use whatever word that would allow you to come to the session and listen, and then I'll kind of switch it on you and say it's actually love. But this is the thing, Deidre. When I first started doing this type of sessions on love, the reason why there's such a pushback on it, I know the different comfort levels. We have different experiences with it. Some people really want it to be personal and family versus work and keep it separate. I had a bad experience with love. Love is so private. So we have to just honor people where they're at. And I'm happy to just talk about it. Actually, to love is just to be human.
Absolutely. So as we close out the session, Lori, once again, I am so deeply grateful for you coming and sharing your brilliance and your warmth with our community. It's been an absolutely phenomenal event, and I am just so incredibly grateful. We have live streamed to YouTube, so this session, you can watch it again, everybody. You can take notes, you can look at the resources that Lori has kindly shared through, kind of fast forward and pause and all of those sorts of things. I do want to also let you know that, of course, we do these Ask an Expert sessions every other Friday. May is an interesting month. May is speech and hearing month. So our first Ask an Expert, we're going to be joined by a speech language pathologist who's going to come and talk about speech disabilities, and especially around things like disclosure, if and when students might want to disclose their disability, whether it's to instructors or their peers, and how they might approach that. Then May is also Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month. So we're pleased to be welcoming back Dr. Michael Sorsdahl for an intimate partner violence and sexual assault in relationships chat. His last chat about consent was incredibly well received. So I really invite you all to come and join us again for Ask an Expert. As I close, I also want to, for those of you that have ever emailed me for probably 30 years now, my byline in my email is life has changed, growth is optional, choose wisely. And so that's kind of how I choose to live my life. That's a quote by Karen Kaiser Clark. And so I please ask you to have a fantastic weekend. Be kind to yourselves, love yourselves, and honor all of the incredible work that you do. Life isn't always easy, but it's a wild ride. So keep smiling, everybody. Lori, thanks again. I look forward to when I can buy you lunch.
Yes, and when we can hug.
And when we can hug.
Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody. Have a fantastic